South Africans stood stunned today after Parliament descended into a level of chaos rarely seen in the country's democratic history. What was expected to be a routine post-budget policy debate turned into a storm of accusations, anger, and political theatre so incendiary that the Speaker was forced to shut the entire session down. The sudden collapse of order came after a fierce verbal clash between Patriotic Alliance leader Gayton McKenzie and President Cyril Ramaphosa, a confrontation so brutal and unrestrained that it exposed the deep fractures and tensions simmering beneath South Africa's fragile coalition government. What unfolded on the parliamentary floor was not merely a heated exchange, but a moment that revealed how unstable, polarized, and emotionally charged the nation's leadership landscape has become. Before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe. The drama ignited when McKenzie rose to speak during the second round of the budget debate. Known for his bluntness and flair for provocation, he wasted no time launching a blistering attack against the president and his administration. With the confidence of a man who expected a fight, McKenzie accused Ramaphosa of being a coward who enabled corruption, neglected citizens, and failed to show decisive leadership at a time when the country was crying out for direction. "You are a weak leader, Mr. President," McKenzie thundered, his voice reverberating across the chamber. "You greet the wicked and turn your back on the starving. This nation is not broke. It's been broken by your silence." His words cut sharply, and the ANC benches erupted instantly. MPs shouted over him, attempting to drown out his accusations as the atmosphere thickened with hostility. Despite repeated warnings from the Speaker, the commotion only escalated. Heckling grew louder, the interruptions more aggressive, and the tension more combustible. It reached a boiling point when President Ramaphosa, visibly shaken and uncharacteristically emotional, rose from his seat. In a rare, fiery moment of personal confrontation, Ramaphosa lashed out directly at McKenzie. "And you, Mr. McKenzie, are nothing more than a political opportunist masquerading as a revolutionary," he snapped. "You preach about the poor while dining with billionaires. Your rhetoric is empty. Your fury is for show." A hush fell briefly, and then the chamber exploded. Parliament dissolved into pure chaos. MPs from opposing sides sprang to their feet, shouting across the floor, hurling insults, wagging fingers, and accusing one another of hypocrisy, treason, and betrayal of the people. The Speaker's voice was repeatedly drowned out as she attempted to restore order, pleading for calm that never came. Security personnel moved closer to the benches, anticipating the worst as the verbal were threatened to spiral beyond control. The rules of parliamentary engagement, respect, and structure evaporated as tempers surged and alliances hardened in real time. Realizing there was no salvaging the debate and fearing the disorder could erupt into physical confrontation, the Speaker made the unprecedented decision to end the session immediately. The abrupt shutdown served as a grim acknowledgement of how severely the situation had deteriorated. Even as MPs streamed out of the chamber, the animosity did not subside. Witnesses reported heated arguments spilling into the corridors, with staff stepping in to prevent physical altercations. What should have been a dignified national debate turned into a spectacle of uncontrolled fury that left South Africans stunned. The entire meltdown unfolded live on national television, and within minutes, clips of the confrontation flooded social media. Platforms like TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook erupted with commentary, memes, outrage, and partisan takes. Hashtags such as #Ramaphosa vs McKenzie, #Parliament Meltdown, and #SA on Fire surged to top trends almost instantly. The public reaction was swift, emotional, and deeply divided, reflecting the stark political polarization gripping the country. Supporters of McKenzie praised his boldness and framed him as the only leader with the bravery to confront the president directly. "He said what we're all thinking," one commenter wrote. "Someone had to shake the establishment." His backers celebrated him as a truth-teller in an era of political sugarcoating. On the other hand, Ramaphosa supporters condemned Mackenzie as a reckless provocateur who undermined the integrity of parliament for personal political gain. This wasn't courage, an ANC supporter argued. It was irresponsible theatrics designed to inflame tensions and promote chaos. Political analysts weighed in quickly, adding academic weight to the growing national anxiety. Renowned political analyst Zanile Luthuli described the incident as a symbolic moment exposing the deep dysfunction in South Africa's governance. What happened today was not just a collapse in parliamentary etiquette, she explained. It was a window into the stress fractures running through our political system. The coalition is fragile. The economy is suffering. Citizens are exhausted. This was pressure boiling over. She warned that if leaders continue on this path of hostility and spectacle, such confrontations may become normalized, further eroding trust in democratic institutions. Opposition parties also responded with concern and calls for accountability. Both the Democratic Alliance and the Economic Freedom Fighters demanded a formal investigation into the conduct of both leaders. The EFF criticized the president for allowing himself to become emotionally entangled instead of upholding presidential dignity. The DA, meanwhile, argued that Mackenzie's inflammatory language created a toxic environment that made productive dialogue impossible. Together, they urged the Speaker to impose disciplinary measures to restore confidence in Parliament's ability to function as a serious legislative body. Yet beneath the political theatre lies a deeper and more troubling reality. The confrontation was not an isolated moment of passion, but a reflection of the growing national disillusionment with political leadership as a whole. South Africans, particularly those in struggling townships and rural communities, watched the events unfold with a mixture of anger and despair. For citizens grappling daily with unemployment, failing infrastructure, water shortages, electricity failures, rising violence, and increasing economic hardship, the sight of their elected officials shouting instead of offering solutions felt like a painful betrayal. Social media comments captured this frustration with brutal clarity. "We need food and jobs, not fireworks," one user wrote. "They shout while we suffer." Others express fear that the political system is drifting toward instability and spectacle instead of service and accountability. Civil society organizations echoed these sentiments, urging leaders to treat the incident not as entertainment, but as a warning sign. Constitutional watchdog groups called on Parliament to recommit to dignity, transparency, and discipline, warning that unchecked chaos could further undermine faith in democracy. As the emotional dust settles, the country is left grappling with pressing questions. Was this eruption merely a dramatic flare-up that will fade with time? Or was it the first major signal of a political system unraveling under the weight of its internal contradictions? Will Parliament regain its composure and rebuild a sense of decorum? Or will future sessions descend into similar spectacles, turning governance into a stage for performative outrage? With elections approaching and public trust at historic lows, South Africa may be entering a dangerous new political era, one defined less by policy and more by confrontation. The meltdown in Parliament was not just embarrassing, it may have been the first crack in the facade of political stability, revealing a system pushed to its limits. And unless leaders find a way to restore order, respect, and responsibility, the chaos witnessed today may become a preview of the nation's uncertain future. In the hours that followed the parliamentary shutdown, the political storm only grew stronger. The country's news networks ran back-to-back coverage, dissecting every word, gesture, and reaction from both leaders. Analysts replayed the footage frame by frame, highlighting how the confrontation between Mackenzie and Ramaphosa symbolized not just personal animosity, but the widening cracks in South Africa's political framework. Commentators argued that this was more than a clash of egos, it was a collision between two competing visions of leadership, each claiming to represent the voice of the people while exposing the fragile underbelly of a system struggling to cope with economic strain and political fragmentation. Outside Parliament, journalists gathered as MPs left the building, hoping to capture reactions in real time. Some legislators expressed disbelief over what they had witnessed, calling it a national embarrassment and urging the Speaker to hold emergency discussions on restoring stability. Others defended their respective leaders fiercely, suggesting that the eruption was inevitable given the country's mounting pressures. A few MPs confessed that tensions had been simmering for months, and today's explosion was merely the moment when everything finally boiled over. As night fell, the President's office released a carefully worded statement acknowledging the chaos but accusing opposition leaders of deliberately provoking instability. The Patriotic Alliance responded just minutes later with a fiery declaration insisting that Mackenzie spoke for millions of frustrated citizens who feel ignored and betrayed by the current administration. Each statement only heightened the public divide, with hashtags and heated debates dominating online spaces long after midnight. Across the country, in communities already worn down by daily struggles, the event stirred deep emotional reactions. In townships, many residents gathered around televisions in shops and community centers, shaking their heads in disappointment. Several expressed fear that if leaders inside Parliament could not control themselves, the country might be headed for more turmoil. If they can't even talk without fighting, what hope do we have? One resident sighed, echoing the sentiments of many who feel abandoned by those in power. Business leaders also entered the conversation, warning that political instability could scare away investment and damage an already fragile economy. Chambers of Commerce urged all political parties to engage in dialogue and restore confidence before South Africa's international reputation took further hits. Economists pointed out that investor uncertainty often spikes when governments appear divided, and the parliamentary meltdown could have ripple effects over the coming months. Civil society organizations began planning interventions of their own, calling for public forums, peace dialogues, and renewed emphasis on democratic accountability. Several groups reminded Parliament that it exists not as a battleground for personal grudges, but as a space where solutions for the nation's problems must be debated with respect, discipline, and clarity. But even as voices of reason emerged, many worried that the emotional and political damage may already be done. The confrontation between Mackenzie and Ramaphosa is now etched into the public consciousness as a symbol of a government battling itself while ordinary citizens bear the consequences. Whether this moment becomes a turning point toward reform or a warning of deeper chaos to come remains uncertain. What is clear is that South Africa has entered a period where every word, every reaction, and every political decision will carry heavier weight than ever before. If you found this valuable, join our community and subscribe.